This is a Louie Tee Network exclusive.
Who else could have been me, your man? Louie Tee, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to the biggest and hottest names of the 2016 NFL Draft. We're talking quarterbacks, the most important position in all of the National Football League. And you know the mantra, you know the motto. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in the National Football League. And so this is one of the most coveted positions every single year in the draft. We've knocked down probably the three biggest names in this draft class in Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, and Paxton Lynch. Now we're talking about a guy that I think could slide a little bit, but could also find himself in the back half of the first round. Definitely coming off the board in the second round if he doesn't go in the first round. And of all the top 5 quarterbacks that we'll talk about in this process, I think he has the best chance to jump into a situation and start right away. Very polished, and I think he brings a lot to the table, but he's also the biggest wild card and enigma of the top 5, I think, in this draft class of quarterbacks. Of course, I'm talking about Michigan State's Connor Cook. Here's a guy with a lot of playing experience, a guy that you feel like can come in, run your offense right away. Let's talk about Connor Cook and the pros and the cons to Connor Cook and why this guy could potentially sneak into the back half of the first round, but may potentially slip to the second round when it's all said and done. His pros: he's a good size QB at 6'4", 220. This is a guy that comes in and he has the prototypical quarterback size for the NFL pro game. I think that's something that you'll find with every single one of the top 5 quarterbacks that we are going to talk about in the Draft Prospects 101 series. A guy, again, none of these guys are lacking in height. Only Jared Goff is a guy that's a little thin at the quarterback position, but again, I don't really worry about that too much. I think he can handle himself just fine at the next level. And Connor Cook checks all of the boxes there at 6'4", 220 pounds. Good arm strength. That's another pro for Connor Cook. I think he can make every single throw on the field. He can zip it in there when he needs to. He's a guy that will anticipate some throws. So again, everything that you're looking for. Can make the throws to the outer hash, can make the throws in tight windows, up the seam. He can push it down the field. He can throw it with a little bit of touch. I think something that separates him from the rest of the top 5 in this draft class at the quarterback position is his quick release. I think he has the quickest release of any of these quarterbacks that I'm going to talk about in this series, and it's lightning fast. I mean, he gets it out there. Once he makes up his mind as to where the football is going, it's gone, and it's very quick, and it gets on the receivers fast, and that helps him avoid making mistakes sometimes, not all the time, but again, quick releases are in vogue in the league, and you always will find evaluators that love guys that can get the football out of their hands quickly, and Connor Cook, I believe, does that better than most of the quarterbacks in this draft class. Great pocket mechanics. I think his mechanics in the pocket are very fluid. They're sharp. You can tell that he's got a lot of playing experience at the quarterback position. He's played at a very high level for a while, and you can tell why that is. You look at his feet in the pocket. There's no sloppy footwork. Where he's going with the football, good base, good transfer of weight. You see he's pointing in the direction where the football is going. He reshuffles his feet when he's going to throw in a different direction than where he was intending to go with the football. He slides up in the pocket and manipulates it very well. So he's here in his drop, and he steps up to avoid a guy that's coming around the corner. He can slip and slide in the pocket. Very good phone booth mobility inside the pocket. I think his mobility within the pocket and his mechanics in the pocket, and that I think also speaks to the quick release, I think are things that separate him from a lot of the guys that we'll talk about in this series. Throwing with timing and anticipation, I don't think his arm is as strong as, say, a Paxton Lynch or a Jared Goff, okay? I don't think he's going to absolutely wow you when he throws the football, but I think he throws a very good football, tight spiral. But the thing that I think separates him from some of the other guys is the anticipation when he throws the football. I think he throws with timing, back foot hits the ground, balls out, and anticipation. He knows that this receiver is going to cut his route off at 12 yards, and he lets the football go before the safety can react to the dig route, and it's a completion. He's throwing the seam route up the seam to the tight end. Price is open. He's got him, and the linebacker is underneath. Safety's trying to come down, and he'll throw it in there with a bit of anticipation. As he looks up for the seam ball, it's there before the linebacker can get his head around. That's what I mean by timing and anticipation. He does it better than most of the quarterbacks in this draft class. Solid mobility, again, not going to knock your socks off with his mobility, but it's good enough for him to be a productive quarterback in this league. It's good enough for him to avoid harm inside and outside of the pocket. I think you'll be more than satisfied with how he moves in and outside of the pocket. Again, not going to scramble for 15 yards unless there's no one around, but he can get you 5 yards on 3rd and 4. He can get you 7 yards on 3rd and 6, and that's all that matters in this league. Work under center some. And we talk about the spreading. He was in a very heavy shotgun pistol formation offense with a lot of movement, just like a lot of the other quarterbacks and coming into the NFL from the collegiate ranks. But he worked under the center a little bit more, and so you can kind of see some of the things that he's going to need in the pro game on tape. You can see him under center. You can see him getting into some drops. You can see him diagnosing the defense. You can see him turn his back on play action fake, turn around, survey the field, find a receiver. You can see him checking the football down after going through multiple reads. So there are some things that you get to see because he took some snaps under center consistently enough so that you can say, all right, he can do this, he can do that. So you feel comfortable about that with Connor Cook. So those are all the good things. Those are all the pros that Connor Cook brings to the table. Let's talk about some of these cons now. And he will predetermine targets sometimes, and that's very frustrating. But it's something that's not uncommon for young quarterbacks. They will figure out a target, make up their mind, and sometimes this happens in the huddle, okay? They practice this play over and over. They've had success earlier in the season with this play. This is something that may be a staple for them, and he feels comfortable going to his first route and his first read on this particular route, and it's usually open. And maybe it's a guy that he trusts, that even if he's covered, he's still gonna make a play for me. So he'll go to that guy even though he's covered, and that's sometimes how he will get himself into trouble. He will throw the football. And I think a great example of that was the national championship game. Right before the half, they have a chance to get back into the ball game, and he throws a pick to a receiver. And maybe if he makes a better throw, he can get in there. I don't think he should have thrown the football, period. He underthrows the football, but he had already made up his mind in the huddle. I'm going to this receiver. And the corner who's sitting in zone coverage is eyeballing him the entire time. And he stares him down, and he throws the football exactly to that cornerback who makes a play on the football, picks it off. And to me, that changed the entire complexity of that football game. It was never the same, and they end up getting blown out in that ball game. Inaccurate on the move. This is something that irks me to no end with Connor Cook, because in the National Football League, you're not going to be able to sit in a clean pocket at all times. You're going to have to get out. You're going to have to escape. You're going to be on some bootlegs. They're going to put you on the move to move the pocket at times to confuse the defense. You've got to be able to be accurate on the move. That is a necessity at the next level. And I saw too many times where Connor Cook was inaccurate on the move. To me, of all the 5 big-time quarterbacks coming into the draft in the 2016 NFL draft, he is the most inaccurate on the move. A lot of balls that were scattered all over the place. When he is on the move, he's a guy that needs to have his feet set to throw an accurate football. And to me, that's something that he needs to be working tirelessly at right now before the combine hits. And maybe that's why he didn't want to go to the Senior Bowl, because some evaluators were going to find some flaws there. Maybe he's working on that as we speak, but I did not like what I saw on tape with him on the move, outside of the pocket, throwing the football. A lot of inaccuracies there with Connor Cook. Operation under duress. I wasn't impressed with Connor Cook. I talked about some of the other quarterbacks staring down the gun barrel, taking shots, delivering footballs that were catchable. I don't really necessarily like Connor Cook under duress. I thought there were some times where he was a little skittish in the pocket where he was under duress. I mean, I think of that Alabama game, and maybe it's because it's the last game that I saw him in, but that Alabama game comes to mind. There are several other games. The Iowa game, I thought he was very poor in that game as well, where you take some hits, you make some bad decisions, some bad throws, you take some sacks, you fumble the football. You know, you do some things that are uncharacteristic to you because there's a little bit of pressure, and I have a problem with that because, again, in the National Football League, we just saw it in the Super Bowl. Pressure is going to come, and when you go against elite defenses, if there's pressure, you're going to have to be able to deal with it a little bit better than Connor Cook did in situations at Michigan State. So that's something else I got my eyes on, but again, I think that's something that he'll be able to overcome, but I was not impressed with him when he was under duress. Shoulder injury. At the end of his collegiate career, he was dealing with a shoulder injury. He had some time off between the bowl game in the playoff game, with Alabama and the last game of the season, the Big Ten championship versus Iowa. And there was a lot of talk and discussion about his shoulder and him having an injury. And he was supposed to be completely healthy for that Alabama game. It didn't look like it because he played very poorly in that game. But whatever the case may be, he's been dealing with a shoulder problem a lot of his senior season, and that's something that you definitely need to check out. I'm pretty sure they've got all of these different teams that are looking for a quarterback have their medical staff all over this, and they will at the combine. They'll be poking and probing at his shoulder to make sure that it's healthy because, again, when you talk about a quarterback, shoulder is a big part. Remember, we had this whole same song and dance with Jameis Winston and his shoulder and all of those things when he got to the combine. He had to answer a million questions, and I'm pretty sure Connor Cook will have to do the same when he gets to the combine as well. But the biggest knock on Connor Cook right now, and this is the thing that I think is going to see him kind of fall a little bit in some people's eyes in the draft. He did not do himself any favors. Is his arrogance and his lack of leadership. Now, I can't confirm nor deny the latter. The former is something that we kind of saw in Connor Cook, and it may lend itself to as to why he wasn't a leader. He wasn't a captain. He wasn't chosen to be a captain. If you're a senior, and this is the thing, I was a big proponent of Connor Cook coming out last year. In last year's draft, even though he wasn't going to be the first quarterback taken, wasn't going to be the second, because he still, had he came out last year, he still would have been behind Winston and Mariota. That would not have changed, but he would have been the third quarterback, and he would have won in the first round. And I think a lot of things that we got to pick at and probe at in his senior year, we wouldn't have had a chance to do. If you're not a captain in your junior year, nobody really bats an eye at that, okay? It's not uncommon for a guy to be a junior and not be a captain. It's okay. But when you're a senior and you're the quarterback, you put those two things together and you've started for multiple years, there's no excuse for you not to be a captain because first and foremost, the quarterback position is viewed as the captain of the football team. You're the leader on the field and you're supposed to be the leader off it as well. Guys are supposed to follow your lead and your example. So when you're a quarterback, that usually just comes with the territory. Add into the fact that you are a senior and you're a quarterback, you're supposed to have a C on your chest, okay? Him not having that, that's a big problem. And so that raised a lot of red flags with people as to why isn't this guy a captain? Then you start probing and then you see the Big Ten championship and him snatch the trophy away from Archie Griffin. A lot of people gave him flack there as well. And so there's been a lot of rumors as to how good of a teammate he is. He does seem a little arrogant. Look, I'm not here to judge anybody's character or talk about what someone is or isn't. His biggest mistake was not showing up and performing at the Senior Bowl. He declined to perform at the Senior Bowl, which to me makes absolutely no sense. They're giving you a platform to show off your talents and showcase yourself to all the coaches, the scouts, the GMs around the league, and you decline? You would think that him and his agent would have sat down and learned from A.J. McCarron just 2 years ago when A.J. McCarron declined to perform at the Senior Bowl and saw his stock plummet all the way to the 5th round. A.J. McCarron was better than a fifth-round quarterback, but because he declined to perform at the Senior Bowl, a lot of people knocked him down a few rungs, and all of a sudden, a guy that could have been a third-round pick, maybe even a second-round pick, because I thought he performed well at the Combine, got knocked down to a fifth-round pick. And you can't tell me that his draft stock wasn't affected by his decision to not play and perform at the Senior Bowl. And I think Connor Cook is going to find himself in a similar situation. A lot of people were anxious to see how this kid would come out and perform in the practices leading up to the game and then in the game, and he declined. And I think that's a problem for a lot of coaches, GMs, scouts around the league. And I think if he had any aspirations of being a first-round pick, they may have went out the window when he didn't show up at Senior Bowl and perform. And so that's a problem. And I think Connor Cook had too many things going on for him not to show up at the Senior Bowl, dispel some of those, and then go out and ball out. Carson Wentz went, and he, to me, separated himself from some of these quarterbacks because he had an extra opportunity to go and play and perform in front of the scouts. And I thought he did a marvelous job of handling himself in front of the microphone as well as in front of the coaches on the practice field and in the game. So I thought Connor Cook missed an opportunity there, and I think that's going to hurt him come draft time. And I don't really know if he can make up the ground that he lost at the Senior Bowl by not performing and not coming during the process of the Combine and the Pro Day. I just don't know if he can. Some of that damage is irreparable, and I think he may have just done some damage, some serious damage to his draft stock by not performing at the Senior Bowl. But we'll see. But that's Connor Cook in a nutshell. A guy that you worry about him being the leader of your football team. He wasn't a captain at Michigan State. That's a little fishy. Gonna have to dig deep into that if you're a team looking for a quarterback, because you want your quarterback to be a leader of men, and obviously for some reason, we don't really know, and I can't speak to that, he wasn't that guy at Michigan State. So there are some questions there, some red flags that need to be addressed with Connor Cook. But if you're asking me which of these quarterbacks is probably the most ready to go right out of packaging, I'm going to tell you it's Michigan State's Connor Cook. But there are some issues that definitely need to be addressed with him before you make him the starter of any football team in the National Football League. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything National Football League. 4 quarterbacks down, 1 to go. I'll see you next time on the 2016 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series.
There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie Tee, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.